Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, this investigation and these hearings started in response to the loss of Agent Brian Terry, and I think all of us continue to offer our condolences to his family and to all of his colleagues in uniform who protect our borders in all of our agencies. And that really was the impetus for these investigations. And I certainly could have been one of the 31 Democrats who signed that letter to ask the Department of Justice and the White House to cooperate with this investigation and be forthcoming with any evidence that helped us get to the truth. But unfortunately, over the course of these hearings and this investigation, that focus, that seriousness of purpose regarding the loss of Agent Terry has been lost. It has now morphed into a more selective, a more partisan, a more media-seeking process. What we're talking about now is, in this last iteration of the contempt citation, we claim, or at least the majority now claims, that we are seeking documents surrounding the false letter that has been referred to by the gentleman from Pennsylvania who just spoke and others who have spoken about this as well. This letter, which went out in February of 2011, was false, and it denied the fact of gun walking. By the Phoenix office of the ATF, actually initially by the Justice Department. Now, if we're going after those documents around the denial, the original denial that gun walking was going on, the investigators also came up with evidence that in drafting that false letter that went to Grassley, great reliance was made on the statements of the Phoenix office of the ATF. That's where the statements came from. The Phoenix office of the ATF said, we're not doing any gun walking. They gave that information to the Department of Justice, and that letter went to Mr. Grassley. Now, you would think if we were pursuing the truth, we might call the folks from the Phoenix office of the ATF before this committee and have them answer to why they gave that false information. Here's where the selective, I would say, the willful decision to ignore where the facts lead, that's where they come in play. We have never asked Ken Melson, the former head of the ATF, who was part of this decision, we have never asked him to come before this committee. And I think the reason is because in his internal testimony with investigators, he has already said that he never informed the Department of Justice seniors to him regarding gun walking because he was unaware of it himself. Because the information that he would be providing if he was brought before this committee would be exonerating to the Attorney General. So we didn't bring him forward. We didn't want to hear the facts. We didn't want to hear the truth. It would get in the way of going after Attorney General Holder, so we never asked him to come. So this is getting away from a search for the truth with respect to the death of Agent Terry. Similarly, we know from our investigation that there was a prior program called Wide Receiver, where under the Bush administration, folks were gun-walking weapons into Mexico. But we don't want to know about that because that would get in the way of our investigation and our prosecution and our contempt proceeding against Eric Holder. If we brought Michael Mukasey, who was actually briefed on the gun-walking operation and who was in office when the gun-walking began, that would deflect the incriminations against the current sitting Attorney General. So this whole process has been very selective, very partisan. It's been a real distortion of what the work of this committee should be. when we all started out, you had 31 Democrats asking the White House and the Department of Justice to cooperate and bring forward the truth. But what we've seen is that long after that request was made, this has been made a political issue. This has been really put forward to disgrace the sitting Attorney General. It has been done in a way that has ignored the facts and has really been a miscarriage of what this committee is supposed to be all about in finding the truth. I'm disappointed. I'm greatly disappointed about how this has gone on. Yeah, there are remaining questions to be asked, but we're not asking the right people. We have refused to bring them before this committee. Michael Mukasey, the previous Attorney General, and the head of the ATF, where the false information came from, we are not asking them questions. We're putting blinders on.
Would the gentleman yield?
Gentleman will yield.
You weren't in the room when we quoted that the Attorney General has retracted his statement about the former Attorney General Mukasey having actually been briefed. That's no longer accurately asserted.
Will the gentleman yield to me?
I'll yield, yeah.
You know, Mr. Chairman brought that up earlier, so staff went and found the actual letter dated June 18, 2012, to Senator Grassley from Judith C. Applebaum, the Acting Assistant Attorney General. And what was apparently retracted was an assertion that Attorney General Mukasey had been briefed on Fast and Furious, and a correction that, in fact, he had been briefed on one of the earlier programs, Hernandez. I ask unanimous consent that the
without objection,
letter and the materials related to it.
Without objection.
Right, and just to clarify, the earlier program was also involving gun walking. So I stand by my statement. He was informed about the earlier program. It happened during the Bush administration. It happened under Michael Mukasey, but we don't want to ask him about what went on at that point, and we don't want to bring back Ken Melson from the ATF, who actually led to the false information being supplied to Senator Grassley. That's my point. I yield back.